stations, and he turned out to be very close to this business. He said that if you want to go to the unknown snowy shores, you're welcome. I said of course. I graduated in 2015 and was offered a trip to Antarctica. Of course, it was not so spontaneous. Even in my third year I knew that I would go there. I ended up chatting with one dude on the internet about polar stations, and he turned out to be very close to this business. He said that if you want to go to the unknown snowy shores, you're welcome. I said of course, I wanted to fuck off, who wouldn't? Adventures and all that. But I'm not a scientist, how can I meet the requirements? And I was told that it's okay, there are no special requirements. Now, you need a person who knows how to work with a computer, healthy physically, and at least a little bit with his head. I wondered why. They pay a lot of money for a season, more than $1,000, and Antarctica is the most promising that I will see in the foreseeable future. I'll have something to tell my grandchildren. And I have a lot to tell, unfortunately, but, perhaps, let me go over everything in order. Passed the medical exam, the commission examined my body, made sure the strength of health, they say, is fit. Then took a couple of theoretical classes. We spent 2 months on the Akademik Fedorov, which took us to the asshole of the planet. There are enough stories about it for several posts. For example, at the Neptune Festival we had a great fucking story, so I will be very brief. We stayed 2 times, in Bremerhaven, Gryaboni Fascistia, and in Cape Town, South Africa. All in all, I stayed on the expedition from October 2015 to March 2017. In general, I worked there as a magnetologist. The tasks were not very intellectual: to control the work of magnetometers, follow the 3 strips on the monitor and send everyday reports. It was an hour's work, and there was no epic ice trekking, no conquering the poles, and no eating my own sled dogs from starvation. And it wasn't the cold at -50 that was my main enemy, it was boredom. That's because I didn't often go outside, so to speak. I spent my time at the instruments in the warm rooms. However, there was nothing much to see outside. Only in the first days of my stay at the station I often went out and enjoyed contemplating the icy desert. It seemed that I was on another planet, everything there was very unusual, a feeling of unreality of what was happening. I could not go far from the station because of safety measures, in case I would get lost, so as not to cause too many problems. Experienced people joked about it, that if you go far from the station, you will be eaten by cryons, such terrible mythical creatures, which are not afraid of frost and attack hapless polar explorers. Our leisure time consisted of reading books, practicing in a mini rocking chair, and trying to surf the super slow internet. This is only the case for Russian stations that the internet is slow, other countries were fucking awesome, Navalny helped. We communicated with the other team members only during meals and some general work, so it was lonely and I even got a little feral. When I returned to the noisy city, I wanted silence and solitude, a bit of a neurosis. The most pressing on the psyche was the polar night. The gloomy atmosphere. The film 30 Days of Night comes to mind at once. Complete apathy, you don't want to do anything. There's a tradition, when the temperature drops to -80 degrees, they heat the baths to 120 to 140 degrees, you take a steam bath, and then run out into the street naked. The temperature drops by a symbolic 200 degrees, the steam rises from the red-hot body like you're not a person but a viper, people become like demons, it's a funny sight. And during this polar night an unusual event happened that I want to tell you about. One day in June of 2016 our station was contacted by Big Earth. The news was about a neighboring Chinese station. It was quite close, about 2 hours by rover. Our Chinese colleagues could not contact the station for 24 hours already, so they asked for help from us, Russians, as we were the closest to them, to check on them, so to speak. Very strange, we thought in unison, because what can be the problem with communication, if any station keeps several independent phones? It is unreal for all of them to break down at the same time. There must be some kind of emergency. A fire or something. So we quickly organized a rescue team of 3 people. Since I am healthy, under 2 meters and can carry some weight if needed, I was a part of the team. Besides me, there was a driver and a meteorologist. They packed everything we needed for everything. We got on a Caterpillar all-terrain vehicle and started exploring the ice. The frost was -65, total darkness and aurora borealis above the horizon. Finally something interesting began to happen, I thought. It's a good thing it was a cross-country vehicle. It is difficult and dangerous to cover such a distance by sled or on skis, especially on a hellishly frosty polar night, which is why the pioneers camped and waited for summer to arrive. It's a fucking disaster to get frostbite, plus hypoxia. The air here is like in the mountains, the highest continent, so you can't go far on foot, you suffocate. You look at all this and can't help but marvel at Amundsen's feat. It was most definitely easier by cross-country vehicle. We got there without any adventures. The light at the Chinese was out. At first sight, no signs of fire. And also no signs of life. After a quick look around, we went inside the two-story building, the main building, as the driver, who had been here before, told us. Inside it was dark, there was no light, the rooms were frozen, the temperature was almost the same as outside. The station looked deserted. We thought that it was not good. We switched on our flashlights and started to look around the station, calling for polar explorers. Nobody answered us. Silence. When we began to freeze and were about to turn back, we stumbled upon a locked metal door, which led, apparently, to the basement. The metal was thick, and there was no handle or valve on it. It looked like it only opened from the inside. The question was, why would the Chinks need such a massive door, just like a vault door? Having given up trying to find a way to open it, we returned to the rover, reported the situation, warmed up and began to look around the station, dividing up, in order to manage quickly and not to get too cold. I looked into a couple of buildings, nothing. On the way out I heard the driver shout,
"Guys, come here. Men."
I immediately rushed to the voice, panting from hypoxia, having overcome 100 meters. The driver was waving a red shotgun casing.
"See? I found one by the well, and there's a few more just like it. Why the fuck would these Chinks bring a firearm down here? Bypassing fucking conventions. What the fuck, motherfuckers? Who the fuck are they gonna shoot here? Penguins? And who the fuck are they shooting at already?"
The situation was starting to get very tense for us. Traces of gunfire, the presence of weapons. The Chinese were going to take over Antarctica or something? Where did they go? We came to the conclusion that if they were hiding, it was only behind that metal door. But why the fuck did they freeze the building out? We immediately reported it to our guys, who were fucked up and assumed that it was just one of the Chinks who got bored and started a massacre. But we immediately dismissed this version, because there were no traces of blood or shot holes anywhere. The chief told us to go back, there was nothing else to do at the empty station. We took the shell casings with us, as evidence, so that later we could rub them in the faces of our Chinese colleagues and take the case to court, somewhere at the United Nations. On the way back, the meteorologist's imagination ran wild. He assured us that he had seen something flicker nearby.
"It disappeared into that crack, I say."
The driver poked fun at the meteorologist, joked about cryons, and laughed, but I, for some reason, wasn't particularly amused. Even though I didn't see anything, and this version is hilarious in itself, I was on edge, and would have easily believed in any monster. At any rate, it would have explained the disappearance of the Chinese. We made it back in one piece. No Cthulhu was after us. The shells were handed over to the station master and we waited for the investigation. It was very interesting what had happened at the station. After a week, the chief gathered everyone for a meeting. He got a call from the Big Earth. It turned out that there was nothing wrong with the Chinese. They were just on a camping trip. They had something to explore, so they took off somewhere. Is that believable? No fucking way. The station is permanent. No one will leave it altogether. Surely someone will be left behind. And then why did the Chinese ask us for help? Didn't the polar explorers inform about their ambitious plans? As for the shells, the case was somehow miraculously hushed up and we were told to keep quiet. My ass knows it's for a good reason. If the Chinese keep weapons, they certainly don't keep them for peaceful purposes. This is a gross violation of demilitarization declarations. I don't understand the motivation of our leadership. The case was not even brought up for public discussion. The RF and PRC resolved the situation between themselves and no Americans and other Tsums were informed about it. There was a great temptation to go to that station again. Well, I couldn't believe that the Chinese had returned. For sure it was empty. And then it would be clear, we were fucked. But the station manager said we shouldn't waste fuel. He advised us to take a course of vitamins, that bitch. The rest of the expedition passed without news. I still monitored the magnetometer, sent reports and read books. Life went on as usual, nothing had changed, the station functioned, the team carried out its tasks. Except that I began to go outside more often and to gaze into the icy wilderness. as if trying to find answers to questions in the shimmering horizon. The incident was quickly forgotten, stopped being talked about as if it had never happened. I'm the only one who still keeps in my mind the picture of the abandoned corridors leading to that massive metal door. What had happened there? I'd like to know that myself. I can proudly say that driving in Antarctica is one of the toughest and most dangerous jobs on the planet. In the freezing cold of 50 degrees, all-terrain vehicles, no matter how brutal and powerful they may look, have a bad habit of constantly breaking down, and you have to fix them, change units, and perform some actions with your bare hands. And that's okay for -50. What if it's 60 or 70? What if there's a blizzard on top? Thank God it's below 80 only a couple of days a year. If you inhale sharply and deeply in your mouth, you will catch pneumonia. It is a real holiday when the thermometer reads -30 degrees, you may as well go out and get a tan. I got to this distant continent not by mere chance, it was my dream since childhood. I've seen too many books and movies. In the army, I asked for tank service, served as a driver mechanic, got crusts, which meant that I was allowed to use tracked vehicles. So, I applied to St. Petersburg. There was a great demand for this specialty in Antarctica. There is a constant shortage of drivers, not many people dare. It's scary there. What was required of me? To carry cargo for 1,500 kilometers from Sea Station Progress to Continental Station Vostok, and this on old artillery tractors ATT, adapted for Antarctic realities. A bunch of ATTs and a pair of Kharkov trucks are united into a sledge caterpillar train and drive themselves through the icy wilderness. A couple of words about the miracle machines Kharkov Shanky. These are caterpillar houses, specially designed for the Antarctic, 9 meters long and almost 4 meters wide. They would provide sleeping space for 8 people a night, and they were great to repair. Not like my ATT, there was no need to go out in the cold, access to the engine was provided from inside. I had an adventure on my ass almost immediately. It was the 5th day of the trip from Station Progress. For 2 days, blizzard was howling incessantly, visibility was close to zero, barely visible ahead. The tracks were washed away in no time, covered by new snow. We were going from barrel to barrel, signposts of the road, which were placed every 2 kilometers. In this weather, if you accidentally turn off the road, you're doomed. No one will find you even if they want to, of course if you don't find your way back on your own. So, I was driving along, and then I saw something gleaming behind me. The driver, let's call him D, who was in second last place, started his signal with a rocket launcher. So, something happened. The column stood up. Reluctantly, we got out of the warm cars and headed towards the signaler. The wind was awful, it was hard to walk, and the snow scratched the fuck out of us like sandpaper. We asked D what happened, and he said that the guy who was trailing had gone somewhere. We looked back and really nobody was there. Our first thought was, he had fallen behind. It doesn't happen, we must wait a little and he would catch up. We waited, he didn't catch up. We were worried. We asked him how long the person who had been following him had lost his sight. And the driver looked dumb, peeking the ice with his foot and said that he hadn't looked back for a long time, so he didn't know. We swore at him and sent one car back down the road in a jiffy. We did find the guy who had broken away from the convoy, snapping his teeth from hypothermia, but he was alive. As he was telling us, he was driving, and then bam! The cross-country vehicle stalled and stood up. The main friction broke. While he was stalling and unsuccessfully tried to renew the starter, the area went into a snowstorm and nobody saw the launch of the signal rocket. He hoped that they would quickly notice the laggard, but no one paid any attention. There was a field of 1,000 kilometers around and not a soul, not a gopher, not a mosquito, not even a bacterium. He was sitting for a long time, the interior was very cold, in half an hour it was like outside, under 50 degrees, only without wind. He already said goodbye to life, and then our guys came. Antarctica allows you to rethink life. It really changes people. It's where you can find out your dark side. In difficult situations, people reveal their essence. And that's where you can find your best friends. I and Vladimir Klukin have been fraternizing, we helped each other out many times, we rewound together for 2 seasons in Antarctica, we've been through a lot, I've never had such companions in my life. The soul of the company, a brave man, with a code of honor, there are few of them nowadays. And I will never forget how he died. 2008, the polar day is in full swing. Another sledge caterpillar trekked deep into the continent, mainly carrying fuel. The weather was excellent, comparatively warm and the sky was clear. I was already considered an experienced driver, But it did not mean that I was relaxed. Antarctica is an unpredictable woman, ready to throw a surprise at any moment. If you relax, you'll go to St. Petersburg with Cargo 200. And did this woman throw a surprise? Vladimir was leading the column, and I was right behind him, followed by the others. Suddenly, Klukin's cross-country vehicle disappeared from view with a crash. My heart sank in my heels. I immediately slammed on the brakes and the whole column stood up. A big crevasse. The driver didn't even have time to react. The truck tumbled all at once. It is difficult to notice the crack, usually they are covered with snow, which forms a fragile bridge. All the driver could do was to brake in time and jump out of the cab, leaving the car on the edge of the chasm. Vladimir didn't make it in time. A geophysicist was riding with him in the cabin. We jumped out of the cars and, at our own risk, approached the edge. At the bottom we saw a slightly battered jeep. It had sunk 15 meters into the abyss and was stuck in a hanging position over the precipice between the walls, having caught hold of an icy ledge. And below that, blackness. Then the door of the cabin carefully opens. A geophysicist with a blood-soaked forehead peeks out and literally begs us to pull them up. We rushed to get the climbing equipment. While we were looking for ropes and an ice axe, a hysterical cry was heard from the crevasse, and the former Emercom man, who had remained near the edge, shouted, "Speaker Joey, bitch, hurry up with the ropes, hurry up." Speaker Matthew, I think the car must have started to fall deeper, not a good thing. Everyone was running back and forth, swearing, and they couldn't find the ice axe for a long time. We took the equipment to the edge of the crack. I looked down, the car was there. What happened then? The rescue worker did not answer our questions, gave us instructions and knitted some knots. He threw the end of the rope into the abyss, and when the frightened geophysicist was tied up, he told us to pull on command. We pulled out another man, stammering, with round balls, covered with blood. We asked him what happened to Vladimir. In reply, an indecipherable mumbling. They took him to the Kharkovchanka to give him some tea, and we went to the crack to get the Emercom worker up. There he told us everything. While we were looking for a rope, someone climbed into the door from Vladimir's side. I couldn't see who it was too dark, but I could clearly hear rustling. It was then that the geophysicist yelled, shouted that something had climbed into the cabin, waved it off, almost jumped down in panic. And then the swarming in the car subsided. And that was the end of it. Vladimir still didn't answer the call. What do you mean, who got in? Have you had too much to drink? We refuse to believe it. What are you treating me for? Go get Vladimir.
I won't, and that's it. And I don't advise you either.
I wanted to punch that idiot in the face, but I held back. Then I told him to give me the equipment. I did not want to leave my friend. They tied me up, told me what to do, and I began the descent to the wedged cross-country vehicle. It was dark below, I could not see the bottom. The wind and the echo were blowing through the crevasse. I heard that sometimes cracks can be several hundred meters deep, but people talked about 1 kilometer deep. It was breathtaking to realize there was such a chasm beneath you. I was brought straight down to the door on Vladimir's side. It was really open. I could not see it from above. The rover was tilted toward the driver. I think he could have fallen out if he lost consciousness on impact, but then how did he open the door? Or did he open it when he tried to jump out of the car before he fell into the crack? Shining the flashlight inside the cab, I was shocked to see a sea of blood. Vladimir wasn't there. When I came to my senses, I reported what I had seen to the top and continued my inspection. The whole cabin was splattered with red, the seat was tattered, traces of a desperate struggle. Now I was sure of the words of the Emercom worker. But who could have done such a thing? They pulled me back. We contacted Station Vostok via the radio station in the Kharkovchanka, reported everything in every detail, and they, in their turn, reported the incident to the motherland, thought it over and gave the order to continue the cruise, for, you can't do anything anyway. I did not want to leave. It seemed that I had not done enough to save my friend. The geophysicist came to his senses soon enough. He swore that he saw an inexplicable being pulling Vladimir down. Zero specifics, however. What did the creature look like? Where had it gone? He couldn't explain anything. The shock had blurred his memory. He couldn't even remember how he had been pulled out and taken to the car. His mind was preoccupied with fear. The higher-ups were very skeptical of his story about the creature, and attributed it to an accidental falling out of the cabin. They did not believe us, which was not surprising. After all, if someone attacked those who fell, it means that there is something inhabiting the cracks. And this destroys the scientific picture, how creatures, especially predators, can live deep in the continent. So, there would have to be something they feed on, too. A whole ecosystem. There are no signs of life on the surface. Could it then be something under the ice? Scientists' confidence in the lifelessness of cracks is contagious. Sometimes I catch myself thinking that everything could have been imagined, I just saw what I wanted to see. Nervous tension, a stressful situation, the effects of hypoxia. The human head is a strange thing. I saw a few drops of blood, I imagined a whole sea. The geophysicist in the darkness did not see the driver fall out, but the monster. The Emercom guy might have been too impressionable. What was it? Common sense or an attempt to escape reality? Breaking through the icy wilderness, I will remember more than once the rover hanging over the black abyss. We have no journalists in Antarctica. No one wants to sail for 2 months to the other side of the Earth for a lousy report. How often do you hear news from here? Very seldom, don't you? And if you do, I'll bet it's only about Lake Vostok, the subglacial lake. While there are more than 100 other stations deployed in Antarctica, with interesting programs of their own. In 1999, based on the results of airborne radar profiling, it was concluded that there are large voids in the ice thickness, approximately at a depth of 1.5 kilometers. Their nature is not clear. If the cavities at the very bottom of the glacier can still be explained by geothermal sources melting the ice, the appearance of voids in the middle of the glacier cannot be unequivocally explained. Hypothetically, they appeared from the movement of the ice or from the accumulation of some gas, which came out of the ice with the release of heat. After a more detailed study, by the same GPR, narrow tunnels corridors between these cavities were discovered. There are a lot of them and they form real underground communication networks. Guys from our expedition joke, Nazis dug it, let's drill a hole and see Hitler. It was not without conspiracy theories, such as alien tunnels. Of course, corridors are not the work of intelligent hands, otherwise it would be too easy, because they are scattered chaotically, no logistics and signs of man-made, only by chance, created by nature. In 2001 our polar explorers began drilling over one of the largest cavities, to get inside and find out the composition of the ice, which will tell us, by its chemical composition, about the origin of the tunnels. I have been working at the station since 2004, as a glaciologist, ice specialist, and at the time of writing these words, December 14 of 2006, the drill had penetrated 1,076 meters deep into the glacier. That is more than 200 meters to the hollows. We are planning to do it during this season, and we have the season till the end of January, while the temperatures allow us to work. This year I adapted to the altitude hypoxia much faster, my body got used to it. The same could not be said about the newbies, they were pale and breathing heavily. One of them lies in bed with oxygen cylinder in his arms, vomits several days in a row. Tomorrow we start drilling. December 15 of 2006. The whole day is busy. We have time to work and drink tea. December 16 of 2006. Unbearable homesickness. I dream of just breathing normal, not rarefied air. But here, no matter how much you inhale, it's still not enough. Walk only 50 meters from the cabin to the well, and feel like a marathon. December 20th. I thought I would be a local correspondent, so I could cover the mission of our almost unknown station in the media. All the day long I'm working, I'm tired and time flies and I don't notice it. December 23rd. Something interesting happened. We were drilling and all of a sudden we felt that the drill came across heterogeneity. It interested us and we started pulling a nice sample. An hour later the drill was lifted, we pulled out the core and found organics. At a kilometer's depth, fucking organic matter. We were surprised, and that's putting it mildly. First, we noticed some black lump in the ice, started to examine it and realized that it was a most natural, but rotten, piece of meat. We were just so excited and curious. This heterogeneity was part of an animal frozen into the ice. The drill had sawn off a decent chunk from the creature, and it was impossible to tell species identity from it. Meat, bones, and something black that looked like mold. It was impossible to defrost the piece, it had to be sent for examination. We reported to the Big Earth, they did not immediately believe it, arguing that the ice at this depth is 800,000 years old, and who could have lived in Antarctica at that time. They urgently requested an airplane from the station Progress. They flew the sample to Moscow for examination. While there was time, we examined the extraction, but we could not make out anything. We packed the core, the plane flew in and took away our find, and we began to think about how to extract this creature from the ice completely. December 24th. Big Earth has gone through a lot of trouble to deliver the sample, first, by plane from our station to the sea, then by another plane to South Africa, then from South Africa to Moscow, and then the scientists will take over. All we have to do is wait for the results. How curious. All day in preparation, we'll extract the rest of the creature. Echolocation failed to determine the size of the creature, which means that it is small. December 25th. Very delicate work. We swore a lot. By the end of the work shift we still pulled out one more piece. The vertebral discs in the same black mold showed through under the thick layer of skin. We discussed, made theories and conjectures. December 26th and 27th. We got 3 cores, figured out how the creature lies, we drilled toward the head. December 28th. When I woke up, I could not open my eyes, they were stuck together. I panicked. Called the guys. They examined me and told me that my eyelids were festered, conjunctivitis. They soaked me with water, the pus softened, and I opened my eyelids. It was painful to look at, the light seemed to get brighter, my eyes were watery. My throat hurt like hell. I got sick at the wrong time. The doctor found a pale plaque on my tongue and tonsils. Said the whole drilling crew this morning had the same symptoms. We had a cold. We've been working hard in the freezing cold. We had to stop drilling. How bad I felt hearing the news. It was evening, I had a fever of 40, weakness. The other comrades aren't any better. Someone's delirious. I hear someone threw up. The doctor is worried and is trying to protect us from the people who are not ill and who come to visit us. December 29th. I was delirious all night, dreaming as if I was at a well, taking ice samples. All night. The white plaque in my mouth progressed into pustules, it hurt even to move my tongue. An epidemic was reported to Bolshaya Zemlya. They ordered the sick to evacuate, but they could not send a plane, the weather was bad. I'm vomiting blood. There's some incomprehensible hair in the vomit. Oh, my God. There's no telling what's going on at the station. The condition of the patients is getting worse. Panic is building up. What the fuck is this disease? The doctor said someone's hair is falling out. Is that creature radioactive? I'm sweating like it's a bathhouse. Saliva comes out too fast and drips from my mouth like a rabid dog. My eyes are sticky with pus, my temperature is about 40. I am thirsty and cannot drink, every sip causes bile vomiting. December 30th. Everyone is showing symptoms already. No. It's not radiation. It's an infection. The whole station is infected. Osipchuk died of internal bleeding. I saw mushroom growths in his mouth, it's disgusting. The doctor said it was a fungal infection. I remembered the black mold. In Moscow they confirmed that the creature was infected with an unknown fungus. The weather is bad. This is the lamest New Year's Eve of my life. I've been swallowing antibiotics in packs. Osipchuk's corpse was covered with shaggy mold, his skin was falling off in slices, some kind of smelly slime was leaking from underneath. We took him outside. The whole station was soaked in this smell. Last notes are in illegible handwriting. From the personal diary of the deceased polar explorer Yegor Zorin. The events at that station were classified so as not to raise public outcry. Everything was put down to diesel breakdown. According to the official version, the polar explorers died from the cold. Phylogenetic analysis revealed that the infection originated in the late Paleozoic, coming from a mold parasitizing the early Devonian rhinophytes, now extinct. Considering its extraordinary contagiousness, spreading to all kinds of living creatures, and survivability, it may well be related to the biggest mass extinction in the history of the planet, the Permian Triassic, where 80 to 90% of species became extinct. That's when the supercontinent Pangaea disintegrated, Antarctica drifted beyond the Arctic Circle and iced over, preserving the spores. Why the spores disappeared on the other continents is unclear. Perhaps at the end of the Paleozoic, the fungus did not yet have such vitality, and evolved to its present state while already in Antarctica. Geologists cannot find traces of spores, because the affected organism is completely decomposed by the fungus with acidic corrosion of the skeleton, which would not leave fossils. When a team of biologists dressed in anti-plague suits set foot on the station, it was discovered that the corpses exuded a toxin and a weak acid, the results of the fungus life processes, that slowly corroded the bones. The skin of the dead is covered with thick mold and fungus-like growths. After a few days, the individual fungal outgrowths reach a length of half a meter. The cap-like growths burst and release spores into the air. The fungus lives and releases spores into the air until the corpse is fully decomposed. Frosts are not afraid of the infection. However, it is not clear then why the creature's sample from the well did not decompose. Genetic analysis of the creature was no less surprising. It came from the therapsids, beast-like lizards, Pachydex, which millions of years of evolution have greatly modified. It is likely that this species inhabited cavities and corridors. Since the creature is a predator, An entire ecosystem with lower links in the food chain must have existed under the ice. We thought the species was extinct because of a fungal infection. However, in 2008 there was an incident on the crack in which a tractor driver died. Witnesses mentioned some kind of creature from the crevasse. This allowed us to assume that some of the predators still survived, having developed immunity. And also that the corridors have an exit into the cracks. The committee decided to send an armed team of climbers to Antarctica to descend into the crevasse. For the expedition to Antarctica, our group was formed almost immediately after the incident at the crack. The management offered the most advanced specialists a business trip to a distant continent and explained the essence of the case. The pay was very good. We were also told to keep our mouths shut, for national security demanded it. We told our families that we were going on a business trip abroad on a secret mission of national importance, which was true in part. But try not to brag to your son about going to Antarctica. Sometimes I just wanted to blow up and tell everything. Since the proposed work was very dangerous and specific, and we were only scientists, not fighters, we were trained hard for 8 months. We underwent mountaineering, shooting and physical training. Having trained us, the management killed 2 birds with 1 stone. It reduced the cost of the expedition, because it was no longer necessary to keep a whole squad of soldiers in Antarctica in parallel with us, and allowed scientists to go down into the crack, which was certainly a big plus. The military could say little about the nature of the subglacial voids and the unique creatures that inhabit them. Of course, the operation could not do without professional fighters at all, so the head of our research group was a major of the GRU Special Forces. A veteran soldier, who had previously participated in the elimination of leaders of Chechen gangs, who had taken refuge in the mountains. No wonder that the choice fell on him. Also assigned to us was Nikolai Shabanin, a Siberian commercial trapper with extensive bear hunting experience. After all, we were going to hunt an undiscovered creature. We were given a couple of lectures on the nightmarish fungal infection that devastated the station, on genetic analyses of the creature's body parts, and on subglacial tunnel systems. About the fact that other countries had begun research too. A lot of new stations had been built in the last 2 years. It was all very interesting and stimulating. I wanted to get to work as soon as possible. In early November 2009, all participants in the operation left the northern capital on the vessel Akademik Fedorov. We arrived in Antarctica in December, in the midst of the polar day. We loaded all the necessary things onto the sledge caterpillar train and immediately headed deep into the continent, to the very fissure. We mustn't linger, it was necessary to use the polar day to the maximum. Though the cross-country vehicles moved steadily, without delays and breakdowns, the way killed 1.5 weeks. We began to work hard at the area of crevasses and we had to overcome them cautiously without losing loads and cross-country vehicles. We eventually reached the ill-starred crevasse. A small crust of snow had already formed above it, which we immediately destroyed with our crowbars. The fallen truck was still hanging over the black abyss below. We assembled a lifting device at the edge and lowered 2 men in plague suits down to the tractor. Having found nothing curious there, we unanimously decided to drive the all-terrain vehicles along the crevasse to the place directly underneath, where the subglacial tunnels run out into the crevasse at a depth of 1 kilometer. Earlier this area was thoroughly studied by GPR. We managed to make a map of the voids, and used it to develop a plan to move the descent team. Our final goal was a huge hollow about 30 meters across. We would have to walk about 3 kilometers from the crack through the tunnels to reach it. The tunnels themselves do not have a constant diameter. In some places you can easily walk upright, somewhere even a truck can fit, and somewhere it is so narrow that you will have to work with an ice axe. Also, judging by the nature of the reflection of radio waves, there are some inhomogeneities inside these voids, the dielectric permittivity of which differs significantly from the permeability of the ice. What are these inhomogeneities? We can only guess, but they wrap the entire inner surface of the tunnels and are probably somehow related to the formation of voids. Having arrived to the place, we began work on the construction of a new station. Ready-made trailers were installed on small pillars, such that the construction was not covered with snow. Another part of the team was busy installing the hoisting device at the very edge of the crack. What was impressive were the huge drums, with hundreds of meters of ropes wound around them. Though the steel cables were more reliable, they had to be abandoned. Steel becomes very fragile at -60, and at the bottom of the crevasse, judging by the calculations, the temperature must be below 80, and this at the summer -30s on the surface. The ropes just can't take the strain. I wonder how creatures survive in such conditions? After finishing our work, we went to the usual rest. It was necessary to gain strength before the technically complicated operation. Armed guards on duty guarded the station during that time, just in case something might crawl out of the crack. I couldn't sleep, I was excited and very nervous. Who knows what awaits us there? Infection and aggressive creatures? Or maybe there will be an accident during the descent. For example, an ice ledge from above will break off and crush the entire group. A high-calorie breakfast awaited us in the morning, for who knows when we might have a bite next time? Everything down there is probably infested with spores, and taking off the plague suit for the sake of eating down there was tantamount to suicide. Since we were to spend several hours, or even the whole day, at extremely low temperatures in the crevasse, we developed special suits with internal heating, rechargeable batteries, which could be charged for 3 hours. Each was given 2 batteries, which should be enough. We, the rappelling group consisted of 8 people, were lowered into the crevasse in a hoisting cradle. In parallel, small cabins were lowered down in which we were to spend the night and keep warm at the bottom of the crevasse. With powerful beams of flashlights, we shone down, trying to spot the creature before it spotted us. Occasionally the cradle had to be stopped to break through the ice ledges blocking the way with our ice axes. The temperature kept dropping and dropping. The strip of light from above was getting dimmer and dimmer. Rare conversations echoed through the icy crevice. As we plunged into the darkness, it was as if we were entering another world. And there it was, the bottom of the crevasse. It was uneven and narrow. The thermometer showed -83, and the suits were already warmed up long ago. The instrument showed the absence of spores in the air, which seemed surprising. To think how deep we were. For the next half hour we wandered along the bottom and found a half-meter slit, the entrance to the tunnels. It even took our breath away. There was also no hint of spores. We returned to the cradle and proceeded to install the cabins, heated ourselves for a while by turning on the diesel engines. Even the frost-resistant fuel was capricious in such a cold. We were ordered to wait in the cabins, recharge our batteries from the diesels and get some rest. We set out only 4 hours later. 2 armed men were left in the camp to keep an eye on the equipment. At the entrance to the tunnels, I had that indescribable feeling that all discoverers get. Here they are, the mysterious voids that for so long have been haunting the bright minds of mankind, the voids that harbor hitherto unexplored life forms, changed beyond recognition by evolution over tens of millions of years. Life forms that have experienced a completely different path of development, unlike any other known to science. I took a closer look at the ice at the entrance, chipping away at a sample, nothing unusual at first glance. Perhaps the unusual could be found in the chemical composition? At first we saw no signs of life. When we penetrated 50 meters deep, our instruments began to register the presence of spores in the air. And then something orange appeared in the beams of our flashlights, covering the entire inner surface of the tunnel. The air here was more humid, and our feet stepped in a disgusting-looking slurry that flowed from the ceiling to the bottom and, very surprisingly, did not freeze. We took samples of the fluid. A closer inspection of the orange heterogeneity revealed that it was a fungus, something like mold, but without any analogy to the species known to science. The thought occurred to me that it had some connection to a fungal infection. The mold, in the course of its life activity, produced some heat and melted the ice, which seems to have caused the voids to form. It was feeding on the ice, or rather, on some chemical compounds it contained. We will find that out when we analyze the samples. From there the tunnel was getting spacious, and we could walk at full stretch. We were on full alert and awaiting the moment when we would meet the predatory creature. After passing a fork and another couple of 100 meters, something more interesting than mold came into view. Something black, in stark contrast to its surroundings, lay motionless. We guessed from its outline that it was the creature. It was motionless and seemed dead, but we did not try our luck and made a couple of test shots. It seemed that the creature was really dead. We very cautiously approached closer and examined it. The creature was completely black in color, its skin covered with the same charcoal black shaggy mold. A massive eyeless head, with hypertrophied vibrissae, a tactile organ, growing on it. Strongly developed jaw without cheeks, rows of thin and long teeth are visible. The torso is flattened, the skin as if stretched over the bones.